All right, click the links to join the channel here over at Subscribe. Check out the Odyssey and the Rumble, and hey, the Telegram if you're daring. But it's you're gonna have to have your asbestos panties if you're going in there, wading in some pretty spicy waters. But that's part of the fun of free speech. And it's weird that free speech terrifies people. And when you look for these people who are these left wing idiots who just spurg out about that, and you look and you're like, does free speech really scare you that much? Like, can't you just rebut the ideas? Or like, nobody's forcing you to go in these areas. Anyway, so Willow, Lucasfilm cancels Disney's Willow series and uses it to normalize. I thought that was something only, I didn't know that women could do that. But John Trent, he's a fun writer, but he's a little bit, he's very fired up, which is good, and we need people who are on vaguely right of center who are fired up. So what happens with Willow is it's they find something you enjoy, and they destroy it, and then they repeat, and then you add in sodomy to that. It's like they're I was going to say a pleasure seeking missile, but then when you add that into sodomy, it all kind of sounds weird when it's combined. And then they leave the property in wreckage and call you Hugo Boss if you don't support the BLT, Poxwalks, furry, otherkin race swap of the characters. They destroy it, and then they just move on to buy the rights to another IP that you had enjoyed in your childhood. And really, this is, after we win, we're going to need a Ministry of Culture or something, so you can't have these groups buy these IPs and do this kind of cultural Marxist propaganda to them. Something like that. Honestly, it sounds like I think France was doing that for a while before they totally got subverted and corrupted. Anyway, so then they change everything that you enjoyed. All the characters that you had identified with are now usually, after they change them, they usually make them black and gay for some reason. And if you dare to say anything on social media, especially, I think Twitter's probably the worst, then you are immediately attacked. They're the bad guys. They changed the story and the characters that connected with people for, 40, 50 years over Lord of the Rings for 100 years. Then they attack you for daring to mention it. It's like we can have preferences too. Representation matters. Yeah, well, I mean, we also have our in-group preferences. We want to see ourselves represented. And this is even more insidious because you're taking something that was a pre-existing story that was sold to a certain audience, sold with a certain narrative, and then you're changing everything about it. It's like, oh, what does it even matter? Well, friendo, it mattered enough that you decided to swap out these characters. So if it doesn't matter, why don't you just swap it back? Because they know it matters, and they don't value you because they hate you. I mean, these people are the worst. These people are the worst people on earth. They go, oh, it doesn't matter that they're of European origin. Why wouldn't it matter? Oh, because we degrade, dehumanize those people. Yeah, that's what we're trying to point a finger on. It's like you wouldn't want it done to your tribe, but you feel very comfortable doing it to everyone else. Anyway, so Willow was a vaguely Euro folklore fantasy setting. It only makes sense when you've got European villages. It's, I don't know, like, it's just, you're expecting a little Lord of the Rings meets Braveheart meets this kind of fantasy setting you've seen a million times. It works. You got knights and horses and swinging swords around and like heathen huts and whatnot. It's it basically Conan the Barbarian meets a bigger budget, but it's all in a very distinctive European Smurf village type of setting. It all makes sense because it's like there's so much of this is being drawn from European folklore. But then what happens is they're updating it. They're going to reimagine it. And you look at these parasites who are saying this, like, you're the worst people on earth. Like, honestly, this should be illegal what they're doing. To buy the IP of something like this and just completely subvert and corrupt it. Anyway, when they keep the settings, but they erase the people that created it and the people that you formed a connection to and the storyline. That doesn't make any sense. People aren't fungible, and I know I keep saying that, but they keep doing it. You can't just swap out an Irishman for an African and expect the viewer to have the same connections to the storyline. Both are equally nuanced and multifaceted, but they're the centers of different networks of words and associations and concepts to that character. Humans aren't fungible. Everyone is, all 10 billion people are these unique entities. It doesn't make sense what these cultural Marxists are doing, but they want you to not speak up against it and try to make even speaking up against it politically incorrect. But, below me. So it all just feels like cultural Marxist propaganda because that's exactly what it is. At some point, people have to awaken to what is going on, this digital genocide of you and your history. If they do it digitally, what do you think they're going to do to you in real life? It's called stochastic, large-scale say activity for a reason. I'm using a lot of hot words in here. So these people hate you, and they take I mean, by now, you got to be starting to awaken. Like, these people really, really hate you. This isn't done for any of their altruistic, whatever purposes they're saying this stuff is being done for. No, I mean, these are the worst people on earth. They take every opportunity to degrade and dehumanize you. They want to focus all the hatred on you and not on any other group. It's like a laser pointer with a cat, and I was going to say that it's time for us to shine our lasers on them, but that sounds like it glows from orbit, and I didn't intend it that way. So in the original movie, you've got the guy tasked with the duty of taking the kid around for some mission, and he goes on an adventure, and he teams up, and whatever. It was pretty classic, silly. It was like Lord of the Rings, but for kids. It was, or The Hobbit for even younger kids. It was silly, I admit that. It wasn't rocket science. Hey, most of the stuff coming out of the 70s and 80s, like the original Star Wars, yeah, that was a great kids movie, but I mean, that's all it was. It was a kids movie that adults could also enjoy, but it wasn't an adults movie like Lord of the Rings was probably skewed for a little bit older audience. But, most of the stuff is for an all ages audience. The thing is, it worked really well for kids. I think the baby in the story that he's got to take around was a red-haired girl, and Val Kilmer was in it. It was a fun film. I went back and recently rewatched it. But then in the remake, in the Marxist reimagining, suddenly they erased all the Euro characters that had told the original story, that had set the setting, that had created this complicated network, this intermesh network. So they swapped out all those characters, and you can't do that. It's like a big bird flying through a spider web. It's like you instantly just destroy the spider web, and the bird doesn't even notice, but it's just left in tatters. And they go, oh no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. No, it's not. Those connections are delicate, and they're formed. You can't just swap things out. So nothing has verisimilitude in the new Bolshevik story. The girl is now mixed, and all the Europeans are now African and Indian for some reason. So essentially, it's a bait and switch. You watch it because you recognize the name of the original show, Willow. Everyone who's over 40 knows what Willow was. Then you see that a lot of this stuff has been watched in even if it was before your time originally, it's like, people of all ages were going back and watching this stuff. Because there's a pretty big body of work before about 2000 from the original. Even like, what was it, Mary Poppins, the original versions of that. So you watch it because you recognize the name of the original show, but then or what was that Don Knotts movie where it's the flying car? There was a bunch of these movies that were, even if it's before your time, it's like up until a certain point, like people were still watching VHS tapes and DVDs of this kind of stuff. And honestly, like you can get a external hard drive, and you can get like 1,000 of these movies if you wanted to, and we could probably figure out a cloud way to move this stuff around, and you'd never have to watch anything past 1990 if you didn't want to. There's that much stuff out there. Like if you didn't want your kids to see any of this kind of, if you wanted to have like a hard drive with 1,000 shows on it that were kid safe, without this kind of degeneracy, you could definitely do it. In fact, you could probably fit it on a micro SD card. We could mail this stuff around. That would be our active rebellion. Anyway, so it's a bait and switch. You watch it, you recognize Willow, and then you see that it's all just propaganda. And predictably, you stop watching because you're just tired of having people pee on your leg and then call you istophobic when you ask them, hey, this isn't raining, you're peeing on my leg, and you're looking me in the eye and telling me it's not pee. It's like, just stop. Then it gets canceled. Then the actors and directors usually get on Twitter and call everyone bigots for not accepting their digital erasure and replacement. Or the Mary Sue will say, oh, you horrible people chased off Kelly Tran or something from Rose Tico. No, I don't know. I mean, it's like you're a public figure on social media. You're going to get people, saying all kinds of stuff. Every public figure gets that. But these far left-wing toxic magazines, digital magazines, try to set up a narrative where you can't criticize the show. It's like, well, that's why they're using Pox characters in these horrible, horrible shows. Like, would it have mattered if Kelly Marie Tran was a hot, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, sexy, or not, I guess sex wouldn't really work in the show, but if she was blonde-haired, blue-eyed, thin, attractive, fit, would that have, like, would the character have been better than being put in this dumpy, what was she in, like a pair of coveralls or overalls or something? It's like something girls would wear on their period. It was just, I mean, it was just, there's no appeal to it, and she had that horrible haircut that made her look like she was enjoyed comfortable shoes type of thing, Birkenstocks. You know what I'm saying? I say this as I wear Birkenstocks with black socks, Birkenstocks with socks myself every day. But like, would the character have worked better? Maybe it would have. Hot skinny blondes tend to go a long way. But then I guess you would have taken energy away from the main character. What's her face? The English girl. Anyway, the thing is, it still is portrayed. It's like it's bad. God, every time I think of Disney Star Wars, the new Star Wars, the 2015 version, every time I think of that, I just get a little bit pissed off. Like, what an opportunity you had. You probably spent $500 million on the production of those 3 movies, and you just came up with crap. You had the 2 guys, Johnson and Abrams, come up and just garbage. Just 3 movies of just absolute crap. It's like you had this opportunity, and you just effed it in the A. Sorry about that. You had the 3 actors who were in their 60s and 70s, I think. They were at the time alive at the time of filming, and one passed, and you knew she had a drug problem. You knew she had mental illness. You knew she was a very risky character, and you just, we're gonna focus on them for the first movie and put them all together a few times, and like, really, no, we're not gonna do any of that. Why? We're gonna subvert expectations. That doesn't make sense when people are expecting something good and you're not master. I mean, I know I'm getting distracted, but I hate these people so much, and they deserve all the hate. They're horrible. Anyway, so the viewer sees this abortion of Marxism and asks, well, why are these groups together? And they do it in a bunch of other movies. These groups are distinctly from all over the world. So why are they a tribe together? That's not how tribalism works. They did the same thing in Rings of Power and The Witcher, Blood Rain. God, that was, you want to go watch the first Witcher Blood Rain. It's just unbelievable. Or any of these shows. I mean, they're just all cancer. Everyone is mixed together from all over the world, so it looks like every show looks like the exact same propaganda. It's that you go to downtown Los Angeles and you pick the first 100 people you can find. It's like, oh, hey, you're from all over the world. This is perfect. This is what looks like this is what a tribe looks like. This is how it naturally evolves. You're like, no, that's exactly the opposite. None of this makes sense. They did that in that Stephen King movie, the Dark Tower movie. It's like none of that made sense, but they repeatedly do it. They took a red-haired European character and, of course, replaced her with a non-European character. The problem is that we identified with the original characters. That's what sold the show. We don't want to see her replaced. Why on earth would we value someone who is not us? And I don't know if it was Alonzo or Leslie Headland or someone at Disney made that just stupid line about, we're leaving money on the table if we don't use this approach of just super BLT, pox, walks, furry otherkin. Like in every show, it all looks like it's all just a mixed bag of cereal. It's like none of it makes sense. We're leaving money on the table. So you're saying in your assumption that you're going to retain the old audience as you try to widen out this new audience. Yeah, that's exactly what we mean. But that doesn't work in practice. In fact, it's never worked. It'll work this time. I feel like you didn't just hear what I said. I mean, there's objective evidence to show you like 20 movies, 20 streaming shows, or hundreds of comics that do exactly what you're doing, and it hasn't worked. So you can plot that data. But it'll work. No, it won't work this time. What you're saying is insane. If they want to create new European-based fairy tales, why don't you just, I guess it wouldn't be European if they want to do this United Colors of Bennington cringe cancer approach. But, I mean, they could create something fresh. It's a fantasy setting. But, I mean, there's like tribalism connects to the audience for a reason. But, again, Disney can't create because they're evil. Like, I don't mean that hyperbolically. I mean, Disney is biblically evil people. Disney has a lot of bombs lately. I guess their old IPs and the theme park bring in so much cash that they don't care about the movies that bomb. So essentially, they're using the money from their older, better days when you had people from, I'd say the 90s was peak Disney. They had a bunch of animation that was just huge in the 90s. And that stuff is still selling. I guess it's not. It's probably part of the draw for the streaming, where you can go watch their animation from the '90s. I don't know, the Lion King and the original Little Mermaid. It seemed like in the '90s Disney was on everyone's time. It was back in the days of VHS and DVDs, but everyone who had kids had those tapes and DVDs of hundreds of these kind of Disney shows. And our generation was going back even before that, but nowadays it's like Disney is just that stuff still sells. I mean, to the tune of Disney is sitting on cash of just millions of excess dollars, even if they have to subsidize the cancer they put out now that loses money. And they have a go back and look at this the Panda movie that was Disney in Canada, lost $165 million. Strange World lost $147 million. The Chris Evans, Tim Allen movie that didn't have Tim Allen in it, I think Buzz Lightyear lost, I don't know how much it lost, but a lot. I'm trying to say all this stuff is losing money. And then you look at their streaming shows. They've got the Mando, which season 3 came out. Nobody's watching it. Then they have Andor Star Wars. Nobody watched that. Book of Boba Fett. Nobody watched that. And then they had another one, Obi-Wan, something Obi-Wan. I had no idea Disney had so many shows. Like, no, I'm not going to watch it. Not even, you'd have to pay me to, you'd have to, like, no, you'd have to pay me to review those things because it's physically painful to get through their stuff and like watch it and take notes on. I don't know how that guy does it. What's his face? Thorius Unlimited does these kind of stuff. Probably because he's making a lot of money off his YouTube channel. But they have a lot of stuff out there that people aren't watching. So Mando Season 3, people have finally checked out of Mando Season 3. And it's a lot of things. It's like the goodwill that Disney had is gone. Gina Carano is gone from the show. It's like all this stuff adds up. And then the Florida DeSantis stuff. And you look at Disney, you're like, oh, you people are just really, you make me feel dirty when I look at Disney now. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, join the Subscribe Star if you can. I'll see you guys all next episode.